Hey friends, tonight we step into a time of kings and queens, but also of merchants, beggars, apprentices, and washerwomen. The year is Tudor England, and life here is as much about survival as it is about splendor. There is no clean air or quiet comfort. The streets are cramped, the smell of smoke and sewage clings to every garment, and the sound of church bells competes with the shouts of market traders. In the dim glow of tallow candles, you'll see faces lit with hope, worry, or quiet determination. A seamstress hunched over fine silk for a noble's gown, a soldier polishing his pike, a baker pulling dark loaves from a brick oven before dawn. Even the grand halls of court are crowded with people, ambitious courtiers in fur-lined cloaks, ladies with jeweled hoods, scribes bent over parchment. And beyond the palace gates, life grinds on. Weddings in smoky taverns, public punishments in the square, baptisms in chill stone churches. Tonight, we're not just looking at Tudor England's grandeur, we're walking among its people.
Waking beneath the rushes. The day does not arrive with a gentle dawn, but with a slow retreat of the deep, velvety blackness that is pooled in the corners of the room. You become aware of a thin, gray light, the color of slate, filtering through the leaded panes of a small, unshuttered window. It is not enough to illuminate, only to give shape to the shadows. You are awake, but your eyes remain closed for a moment, clinging to the last vestiges of a dream. The first sensation is not of light, but of cold. It is a damp, bone-deep chill that has seeped up from the floorboards, through the straw-stuffed mattress, and into the coarse wool of your blanket. Your bed is not a soft sanctuary. The mattress, a simple canvas sack filled with straw, rustles with every slight movement, a dry, whispering sound. Over time, the straw has compacted, becoming lumpy and hard, and it scratches against your skin through the thin linen of your shift. You can smell the faint, dusty scent of it, mingled with the lingering, sour smell of cold ash from the hearth where last night's fire died hours ago.
You lie still and listen. The house around you is beginning to stir. From the rafters above, you hear the faint, frantic scratching of mice, the unseen companions who share your home. A floorboard creaks in the room below as another member of the household rises. The sounds are familiar, the quiet, intimate percussion of a world waking up. There is no traffic noise, no distant sirens, only the wind moaning softly in the eaves and the distant crow of a rooster greeting a sun that has not yet shown its face. You open your eyes and take in the room. The walls are a mixture of rough plaster and dark, exposed timber beams, their surfaces uneven and stained with the smoke of 100 fires. A simple wooden chest holds your few possessions. Your clothes from yesterday lie in a heap on a stool, the wool still holding the faint dampness of the evening air. The air itself is heavy, still, and cold enough that you can see your own breath, a small white cloud that hangs in the gloom for a moment before dissolving. There is no desire to linger in this bed. It offers no real comfort, only a slight lessening of the cold. The true luxury would be to stay beneath the covers until the fire was lit, but that is a privilege reserved for the master of the house, not for you. Your day must begin in the chill, in the dim pre-dawn light. With a sigh, you push back the heavy blanket and swing your legs onto the floor. The wooden floorboards are shockingly pulled against the bare soles of your feet. The shock is a brutal but effective alarm, chasing away the last remnants of sleep. You stand, your body stiff, your joints aching from the cold that has settled into them during the night. The day has begun, not with a feeling of rest and renewal, but with a quiet, resigned acceptance of the cold, the gloom, and the familiar scratching presence of the mice in the rafters. The world of Tudor England is awake, and it is a cold and comfortless place to be.
Washing without warmth. The first chore of the morning is the ritual of washing. It is a brief, functional, and deeply uncomfortable affair, a far cry from the warm, cleansing experience of a modern bathroom. In the corner of your sleeping chamber sits a small wooden washstand. On it rests a simple earthenware basin and matching ewer, or jug, filled with water drawn from the well the previous evening. You touch the side of the ewer, and the pottery is cold enough to make you flinch. The water inside is even colder. During the winter months, a thin crystalline film of ice might have formed on its surface overnight. This is the only water you will have for your morning ablutions. The concept of hot running water is a fantasy, a piece of magic as improbable as a flying carpet. Heating water would require a significant amount of precious firewood in time, a luxury that cannot be spared for the simple act of washing your face.
You pour a small amount of the icy liquid into the basin. The splash echoes in the quiet room. You take a deep breath, steeling yourself for the shock, and then cup your hands, bringing the water to your face. The cold is a physical blow. It makes your teeth ache and your skin tingle with 1,000 tiny needles. It takes your breath away. You splash your face once, twice, rubbing vigorously with your hands to remove the sleep from your eyes. You do not use soap. The common soap made from lye and animal fat is a harsh, caustic substance reserved for the grueling task of laundry. To use it on your skin would be to leave it raw, red, and irritated. You use only the water and the friction of your hands. The wash is a targeted, strategic affair. You wash your face and your hands, the parts of you that are visible to the world. The rest of your body remains unwashed, protected by the linen shift you wear day and night. The prevailing medical theory holds that a layer of dirt and sweat provides a protective barrier for the skin, sealing the pores against the bad airs or miasmas that are believed to cause disease. To wash the entire body too frequently is to be seen as a reckless and dangerous act, leaving oneself vulnerable to sickness. Your cleanliness is a social performance, not a hygienic reality. What matters is that your face and hands appear clean to others.
You dry yourself with a small, rough towel of hockback linen. It is not soft or absorbent, and it does little more than move the water around on your skin, leaving you feeling damp and even colder than before. You look at your reflection in the small, polished metal mirror that you own if you are fortunate. The face that looks back is pink from the cold water, but it is, by the standards of your time, clean. This brief, shocking encounter with the icy water is as clean as you will be all day. As you go about your work, in the smoky kitchen, the dusty workshop, or the muddy fields, a new layer of grime will begin to accumulate. But the morning ritual has been performed. You have presented a clean face to the world. In Tudor England, that is what passes for hygiene.
Dressing the Tudor way. Dressing in the Tudor era is not a simple matter of pulling on a few comfortable garments. It is a slow, deliberate, and often restrictive process of building layers, a ritual that armors the body against the cold and, more importantly, signifies your exact place in the rigid social hierarchy. Your clothes are your uniform, your status symbol, and often your cage. The process begins with the innermost layer, the one piece of clothing that is common to nearly everyone, the linen shift or shirt.
For a woman, it is a long, simple, T-shaped gown. For a man, a shorter version. This is your primary undergarment, worn day and night. Its most important function is to protect your more valuable outer clothes from the dirt and sweat of your body. A clean linen collar and cuffs peeking out from your outer garments are the key indicators of your personal cleanliness. The wealthy might change their linen daily, while you, a person of modest means, might wash yours only once a week. You pull the cool, slightly scratchy linen over your head. It is the foundation upon which your identity will be built.
Next come the hose, separate stockings for each leg, made of wool or, for the more affluent, of silk. These are pulled up and tied with garters or attached with points, small ties, to your doublet or girdle. For a woman, the next layer is the kirtle, a fitted gown that is the workhorse of your wardrobe. It is made of sturdy, heavy wool, dyed in a somber, earthy color like brown, green, or russet. Bright colors are expensive and reserved for the wealthy. The kirtle is heavy, and its weight is a constant presence throughout the day. Over this, you might wear another gown, depending on the weather and the formality of the occasion. But the most transformative layer is the corset, or pair of bodies. This is not a garment for the common woman, but for anyone aspiring to the fashionable silhouette. It is a stiff, boned bodice, often made of hardened leather or with strips of whalebone or wood sewn into it. It is laced tightly, either at the front or the back, cinching your waist and flattening your chest to create the rigid, conical torso that is the height of fashion. It is difficult to put on by yourself. You often need the help of a servant or a family member to pull the laces tight. Once it is on, your posture is ramrod straight. You cannot slouch. You can barely bend at the waist. Your breathing is shallow, restricted to the upper part of your lungs. This is the physical price of fashion.
For a man, the equivalent layers are the doublet, a fitted, padded jacket, and the jerkin, a sleeveless jacket worn over it. The silhouette is broad-shouldered and narrow-waisted, often enhanced with padding. The final and most distinctive element is the codpiece, a padded, often ostentatiously decorated pouch that covers the groin, a symbol of virility and masculine pride. The final touch for both sexes is the ruff. This stiff, pleated collar of starched linen is a symbol of status. The larger and more elaborate the ruff, the wealthier and more important the wearer. It is an uncomfortable and impractical garment, holding your head in a fixed, upright position and making it difficult to eat without soiling the pristine white linen. By the time you're fully dressed, you are encased in multiple layers of linen, wool, and perhaps even bone. Your movement is restricted, your breathing is shallow. Your clothes are heavy, they're hot in the summer and not nearly warm enough in the winter, but they are correct. They are a clear and unambiguous statement of who you are, of where you belong. In the rigid, ordered world of Tudor England, this is a form of security, a way of knowing your place. You are dressed not for comfort, but for society.
Bread of the poor. The fire in the hearth has finally chased the worst of the chill from the room. The family gathers around the simple wooden table for the first meal of the day. The centerpiece of this meal, and indeed of every meal, is bread. But the bread of your table is a world away from the fine, white manchet loaves enjoyed by the gentry. Your bread is the bread of the poor, and it is the color of the earth from which its ingredients were grown. It is a coarse, heavy loaf made from rye or maslin, a mixture of wheat and rye. The flour is stone ground, and it contains a significant amount of grit and chaff, which gives the bread a rough, abrasive texture. It is dark, it is dense, and it is filling. It is baked only once or twice a week, and by this morning, yesterday's loaf is already growing hard at the edges. Your mother takes the loaf and, using a large, heavy knife, cuts a thick slab or shiv for each person. The crust is thick and hard to chew, but the inside is still relatively soft. The taste is nutty, slightly sour, and deeply familiar. It is the taste of sustenance, the taste of survival.
If you are fortunate, there is something to accompany the bread. The greatest luxury is a small amount of butter churned from the milk of your own cow. More often, there is a small pot of dripping, the rendered animal fat saved from the last time meat was cooked. You take your knife and smear a thin, translucent layer of the cold, white fat onto your bread. The dripping adds a salty flavor and, more importantly, precious calories that will fuel your morning's labor. There are no plates as you would know them. You eat from a trencher, which at its simplest is just a thick, flat slice of stale bread. You place your bread and dripping on this edible plate. Any juices or crumbs are soaked up by the trencher, which you can then eat at the end of the meal, ensuring that not a single calorie is wasted. In a wealthier household, the trenchers might be made of wood or pewter. In yours, they are made of bread.
You eat quickly, without much conversation. The focus is on the food itself. You chew the tough crust. You savor the salty fat. This small, simple meal must last you for many hours. The next meal will not be until midday, and it will likely be much the same. More bread, perhaps a bit of cheese if the harvest was good, and a cup of ale. The quality of your bread is a direct indicator of your station in life. You know that in the kitchens of the great house on the hill, the cooks are baking manchit, a bread made from the finest, whitest, most expensively sifted wheat flour. It is a bread that is light, soft, and reserved for the Lord's table. The second best bread, the cheat loaf, made from whole wheat, is for the upper servants, and your dark, heavy rye bread is at the bottom of the hierarchy. The social order of Tudor England is written in the very grain of its bread. But you do not resent this. It is simply the way of the world. Your bread may be coarse, but it is food. It is what stands between you and the gnawing, ever-present threat of hunger. And for that, you are grateful. Ale safer than water. The cup on your table is not filled with water. To drink water, especially in a town or a city, is to take a significant and often foolish risk. The rivers and streams are the dumping grounds for all manner of human and industrial waste. The wells are often shallow and easily contaminated by the filth from the streets and the nearby churchyards. Water is a carrier of sickness, of the bloody flux, dysentery, of typhoid, of 100 other ailments that can weaken and kill. So, you drink ale. The ale you drink with your morning bread is not the strong, hoppy, intoxicating beverage of a modern pub. It is small beer, a weak, nutritious, and most importantly, safe alternative to water. It is brewed in almost every household, a fundamental part of the domestic economy. The brewing process itself is a form of purification. The water is boiled for a long period of time with malted barley. This boiling, though you do not understand the science of it, kills the dangerous pathogens that may be lurking in the water. The wort is then fermented with yeast, which adds not only a small amount of alcohol, but also a significant amount of B vitamins and other nutrients. The resulting small beer is cloudy, thick, and has a low alcohol content, often less than 1 or 2%. It is considered a food as much as a drink. It is liquid bread, a vital source of calories, hydration, and nutrition for the entire family. Even the children drink it. It is safer and more nourishing for them than either water or milk, which could also carry disease. The taste of the small beer is slightly sweet from the malt and slightly sour from the fermentation. It is served at room temperature, which in your drafty home is usually cool. In the winter, you might warm a cup of it by the fire, a comforting, nourishing drink to start the cold day. A stronger, more alcoholic ale is also brewed for special occasions, for feasts, and for sale in the taverns and alehouses. But the small beer is the staple of daily life. A household's wealth and preparedness can be measured by the size of its ale barrel. To have a full barrel is to have a secure supply of safe drinking liquid for the weeks ahead. To run out of ale is a minor crisis, forcing you to either drink the dangerous water or to spend precious coin at the local alehouse.
The reliance on ale has a profound effect on the sensory world. The smell of brewing, the sweet, malty scent of boiling wort, is a common and comforting smell in any village or town. The taste of the small beer is the taste of home, the taste of safety. You lift your wooden or horn cup and drink. The liquid is cool and slightly thick. It quenches your thirst and you can feel its caloric warmth spread through your body. You are not just drinking, you are consuming a fundamental pillar of your survival. In a world of invisible dangers, where the clear water from the stream can be a vessel of death, the cloudy, humble, and life-sustaining ale is one of your greatest and most trusted allies.
The market's murmurs. Narrative. The heart of your town is the market square. It is a wide, open space, paved with uneven cobblestones, with a market cross or a clock tower at its center. On market day, this quiet space is transformed into a loud, chaotic, and vibrant theater of commerce. It is here that the worlds of the town and the countryside collide. It is here that you will buy the food that will see you through the week. You walk to the market through the narrow, muddy streets, your wooden pattens clacking on the stones. You can hear the market before you see it, a low, humming roar of 100 conversations, of vendors hawking their wares, of animals squealing and clucking, of cartwheels groaning over the cobblestones. Then you smell it. It is a complex and powerful assault on the senses. The fresh, earthy smell of vegetables, the salty, briny scent of fish, the coppery tang of the butcher's stall, the sweet smell of baking from a pie seller's cart, all overlaid with the ever-present aromas of wood smoke, animal manure, and unwashed humanity. The square is a sea of people. Farmers from the surrounding villages stand behind rough wooden tables laden with their produce. Sacks of beans and peas, baskets of onions and carrots, piles of cabbages. Their faces are weathered, their clothes are rough, their voices are loud as they call out their prices. You must haggle for everything. The price is a negotiation, a battle of wits between your desire for a good deal and their need to make a profit. You move through the crowd, your basket on your arm. You need a joint of meat, a rare and expensive treat. You go to the shambles, the butcher's section of the market. The ground here is slick with blood and offal. The air is thick with the smell of raw meat and the buzzing of flies. The butcher, a large man with a bloody apron, stands before his stall, which is hung with the carcasses of sheep and pigs. He wields his cleaver with a practiced, brutal efficiency, hacking off a joint of mutton for a customer. You inspect the meat carefully, looking for freshness, for a good ratio of fat to lean. You argue over the price, your voice just one part of the general din. Next, you need fish. The fishmonger's stall is covered with wet straw, upon which are laid out the day's catch from the river or the nearby coast. Silver-scaled herring, fat eels, and perhaps a pike or a carp. The smell is strong, a powerful testament to the fact that the fish is not entirely fresh. You choose a few herring, their eyes still relatively clear, and the fishmonger wraps them in a large dock leaf. The market is not just a place of commerce, it is a social hub. It is where you hear the news, the gossip, the latest royal proclamation read aloud by a town crier. You see your neighbors, you exchange a few words. You see the town's authorities, the mayor in his fur-trimmed robes, the constable keeping a wary eye out for pickpockets and cheats. You see the beggars pleading for a spare coin or a spoiled piece of fruit. You see every level of your society, from the wealthy merchant's wife with her servant in tow to the poor widow selling a few eggs from her own chickens. The market is the vibrant, chaotic, and essential engine of your town. It is a place of noise, of smells, of crowds, of bargains, and of a deep and powerful human connection. You leave with your basket a little fuller and your purse a little lighter, your senses buzzing, and your place in the bustling, messy world of Tudor England reaffirmed.
In the fields with the tenants. The rhythm of your life is not governed by the clock, but by the sun and the seasons. For the vast majority of the year, your life is defined by the hard, unrelenting labor of agriculture. You are a tenant farmer, renting your small strip of land from the local lord, and your survival and his profit depends entirely on the sweat of your brow. The day in the fields begins just after dawn. You walk from your village, your simple tools, a hoe, a sickle, a spade, resting on your shoulder. The air is cool and damp, and the fields are often shrouded in a low-lying mist. You are not working alone. The great open fields are a patchwork of long, narrow strips, and you work alongside your neighbors, a small army of bent backs against the vast, empty landscape. The work is physically punishing. Your hands, which are tough and calloused, ache from the constant, repetitive grip on the rough, wooden handle of your hoe. You are weeding, a seemingly endless task, bending for hours on end, your back muscles screaming in protest. The mud, a constant feature of the English countryside, clings to your leather shoes, making your feet feel heavy and cold.
The Lord Steward, or reeve, is a constant, watchful presence. He sits on his horse at the edge of the field, his gaze missing nothing. He is there to ensure that the work is done, that no one is slacking, that the Lord's interests are being served. His presence is a silent pressure, a reminder that your labor is not entirely your own. A portion of your time and a portion of your crop belongs to the manor house. The work changes with the seasons. In the spring, it is the back-breaking work of plowing, guiding the heavy, ox-drawn plow through the wet, heavy soil. Then comes the sowing, the hopeful casting of the precious seed. In the summer, it is the endless weeding, the haymaking, the constant battle against the pests and the weather. In the autumn, it is the frantic, exhausting race of the harvest, working from sunrise to sunset to bring in the grain before the rains come. Only in the deep winter is there a brief respite from the work in the fields, a time for mending tools and waiting for the spring. The landscape is your constant companion. You know its every dip and rise. You know the quality of the soil in each part of your strip. You know the language of the sky, the meaning of the different cloud formations. Your knowledge is deep, practical, and earned through a lifetime of observation. Lunch is a brief affair. You sit at the edge of the field and eat the bread and cheese you have brought with you, washed down with a swig of weak ale from a leather bottle. There is little conversation. The work is too tiring for idle chatter. You work until the light begins to fail. As the sun sinks towards the horizon, you shoulder your tools and begin the long, slow walk back to the village. Your body is a symphony of aches. Your back, your arms, your legs, every muscle protests. You are covered in a layer of sweat and dirt, but you have completed another day's labor. You have done your part in the great annual struggle to coax a living from the stubborn, unyielding earth. In the workshop's gloom. While the life of the country is governed by the fields, the life of the town is governed by the workshop. Your world is one of craft, of skill, of the slow, patient transformation of raw materials into useful objects. You are an artisan, a member of a guild, and your workshop is your kingdom, a small, dark, and noisy space where you practice the trade that defines you. Let us imagine you are a blacksmith. Your workshop, the smithy, is a dark, open-fronted shed on a busy town street. The floor is packed earth, the walls are rough timber, and the roof is soot-blackened thatch. The air inside is always thick with the smell of coal smoke, hot metal, and the sharp, almost sour scent of quenched steel. The heart of your world is the forge. It is a massive hearth of stone and clay, where a deep bed of charcoal glows with a fierce, almost white heat. The heat is so intense that you can feel it on your face from several feet away, a constant, dry blast. Beside the forge stands the great leather bellows, which you or your young apprentice must pump with a steady, rhythmic motion to feed air to the fire and keep it at its searing peak. The wheezing groan of the bellows is the sound of your workshop breathing. Your work is a dance of intense, focused violence. You take a bar of raw iron with a long pair of tongs and thrust it into the glowing heart of the forge. You watch it with the expert eye of a man who has done this 10,000 times, waiting for the precise moment when the metal reaches the perfect incandescent state, a bright, malleable orange-yellow. You move quickly, pulling the glowing iron from the fire and placing it upon the anvil, the great solid block of iron that is your altar. Then the hammering begins. The sound is a sharp, ringing, and powerful clang that can be heard all the way down the street. It is the heartbeat of your trade. Your hammer rises and falls with a powerful, practiced rhythm, each blow shaping the soft, hot metal. Sparks fly in a brilliant, fiery shower, momentarily illuminating the gloom of the workshop. You are making a horseshoe, a set of nails, the head of a plow, the hinge for a door. You are making the hard, essential skeleton of your world. The work requires not just brute strength, but immense skill. A fraction of a second too long in the fire, a hammer blow that is slightly off-center, and the piece can be ruined.
When the shaping is done, you plunge the hot metal into the quenching tub, a barrel of murky, cold water. The result is a dramatic, violent hiss, a great cloud of steam, and the final chemical transformation that turns the soft iron into hard, durable steel. Your life is tied to this workshop. You work from dawn until dusk, your body aching, your hands calloused and burned. The gloom of the smithy is your natural environment. The roar of the forge and the clang of the anvil your constant companions. But you are a master of your craft. You are a creator, a transformer of elements. You take the raw, stubborn stuff of the earth, and with fire and with force, you bend it to your will, creating the objects that hold your world together. In the sparks that fly from your anvil, you can see the bright, fierce, and creative soul of the Tudor age.
The call of the court. Your life is not your own. You do not wake and sleep by the rhythm of the sun, but by the ringing of a small silver bell.
You do not work with your hands in the fields or the workshop, but with your feet, your eyes, and your ears in the quiet, tense, and luxurious world of a great, noble household. You are a servant at court, perhaps a lady in waiting or a gentleman of the chamber, and your existence is a performance of silent, watchful, and absolute obedience. Your morning begins in the cold darkness, long before your mistress or master stirs. You dress quickly and quietly, your own clothes simple and dark, a uniform of subservience. Your first task is to tend to the fire in their private chamber, to coax it back to life so that the room is warm when they finally choose to wake. When the bell rings, you move with a swift and practiced grace. You enter the chamber, your eyes downcast, and you begin the complex, ritualized process of helping your master or mistress to greet the day. You bring a basin of warm, scented water for their hands. You help them to dress, a slow, intricate process of layering fine linen, silk, and velvet, of lacing stays and tying points. Your movements are precise, economical, and silent unless you are spoken to.
Your day is spent in waiting. You stand for hours in the antechamber, by the door, in the corner of the great hall. You are a piece of furniture, a silent witness to the comings and goings of the great and the powerful. Your job is to be always present, but never noticed. You must be ready at a moment's notice to fetch a glass of wine, to deliver a message, to carry a train, to hold a cloak. You learn to read the subtle language of the court. You learn the meaning of a raised eyebrow, a slight frown, a sharp tone of voice. You learn who is in favor with the Lord and who is not. You learn to navigate the complex web of alliances, rivalries, and intrigues that seethe just beneath the polished surface of courtly etiquette. The air is thick with unspoken tensions, with whispered gossip, with the constant jockeying competition for favor and position.
You live in a world of profound and unsettling contrasts. You are surrounded by immense wealth and luxury, the fine tapestries, the silver plate, the rich food, the beautiful clothes. But none of it is yours. You handle these precious objects, but you do not own them. You are a privileged observer of a world that you can never truly be a part of. The work is not physically grueling in the way of a field hand, but it is emotionally and psychologically exhausting. It requires constant vigilance, absolute discretion, and the complete suppression of your own personality. You have no privacy. You often sleep on a simple pallet at the foot of your master's bed. Your life is entirely subsumed by theirs. The call of the court is the call to a life of quiet, patient servitude. It is a life of reflected glory, of proximity to power, but it is a life without autonomy. You are a shadow moving silently through the grand, drafty rooms of a great house, your own hopes and fears entirely secondary to the single, all-important task of serving the will of your master. The stocks on market day. In the center of the bustling market square, amidst the stalls of the fishmongers and the shouts of the farmers, stands a permanent and prominent piece of public furniture. It is the stocks. It is a simple, brutal, and highly effective instrument of public shaming,
a constant and visible reminder of the swift and humiliating nature of Tudor justice. Today, the stocks are occupied. The man locked within them is a local man, a cooper known for his love of strong ale. He was found drunk and disorderly in the street late last night, and the town constable has sentenced him to a day of public humiliation. His ankles and his wrists are locked into the heavy wooden frame, forcing him into a cramped, stooped, and deeply uncomfortable position. He cannot stand, he cannot sit properly. He can only endure.
He is the center of attention, the unofficial entertainment of the market day. A crowd of children has gathered around him, their faces a mixture of fascination and scorn. They jeer at him. They call him names. One of them, bolder than the rest, throws a rotten apple, which lands with a soft, wet thud on the man's chest, leaving a brown, pulpy stain on his tunic. He flinches, but says nothing. He simply stares ahead, his face a mask of miserable resignation. The adults who pass by are more circumspect, but they stare nonetheless. They might shake their heads in disapproval or mutter a quiet word of pity. For them, the man in the stocks is a cautionary tale. He is a living sermon on the dangers of drink, of idleness, of falling foul of the law. The message is clear. Tomorrow, it could be you. The punishment is not just about physical discomfort, though that is significant. After a few hours in the cramped position, the man's muscles will be screaming with pain. The sun, if it is out, will beat down on his unprotected head. The rain, if it falls, will soak him to the skin. But the real punishment is the shame. It is the absolute public loss of dignity. It is being reduced to an object of ridicule, a helpless target for the scorn of your own neighbors.
The crimes that could land you in the stocks are numerous and often minor. Public drunkenness, selling underweight bread, using foul language, engaging in a petty brawl. Any small transgression against the public order could result in this punishment. It is a way for the town authorities to maintain control, to enforce a code of social behavior through the powerful weapon of public humiliation. As the day wears on, the man in the stocks slumps in his wooden prison, his head bowed. The crowd of children has grown bored and moved on. The market-goers now pass him with barely a glance. He has become part of the landscape, a piece of living scenery. But his presence has served its purpose. He is a clear and unambiguous signal that the law is always watching. He is a testament to the fact that in Tudor England, justice is not a private affair between the state and the individual. It is a public spectacle, a piece of street theater designed to keep you honest, or at the very least, to keep you afraid.
The Gallows Hill. From almost any point in your town, if you lift your eyes to the horizon, you can see it. It stands on the highest hill just outside the town walls, a stark and lonely silhouette against the gray sky. It is the gallows. It is a simple, grim, and permanent structure of two uprights and a crossbeam, all made of thick, weathered oak. From the crossbeam hangs a length of rope, its end tied in the distinctive, terrifying shape of a noose. The noose sways gently in the wind, a pendulum marking a time that no one wants to reach. The gallows is not hidden away. It is deliberately placed in the most prominent possible location. It is meant to be seen. It is a constant, silent, and powerful piece of state propaganda, a daily reminder to every citizen of the ultimate power of the king's law. Its message is simple and unambiguous. This is the price
of serious crime. Executions are not rare or private events. They are public spectacles, a form of gruesome, state-sponsored entertainment. When a hanging is scheduled, the entire town turns out to watch. It is a major social occasion, a holiday from the drudgery of daily life. People pack food and drink. They jostle for a good position, the slopes of the gallows hill becoming a natural amphitheater.
The condemned prisoner is led from the town jail in a slow procession, tied to a cart. A priest walks beside them, urging them to make a final confession. The crowd jeers, or sometimes, if the prisoner is a popular local figure, they might offer words of encouragement. At the base of the gallows, the prisoner is allowed to make a final speech. This is a moment of high drama. They might confess their crimes and warn others not to follow their path. They might protest their innocence. They might make a final dark joke. The crowd listens intently, hanging on every word. Then the final brutal ritual begins. The hangman, often a hooded figure to protect his identity, places the noose around the prisoner's neck. A cap is pulled over their face. The priest says a final prayer, and then the cart is pulled away, leaving the prisoner to dangle, kicking and struggling at the end of the rope. Death is not instantaneous. It is a slow, agonizing process of strangulation. The crowd watches, silent and mesmerized, until the body finally hangs still and limp.
But the spectacle is not over. The body is often left hanging for days or even weeks, a process known as gibbeting. It serves as a stark and decomposing warning to all who pass by. The crows and the ravens come to feast on the flesh. The body becomes a blackened, skeletal puppet, dancing in the wind. The gallows hill is a place of fear, but also of a strange, dark fascination. It is a place where the ultimate power of the state is made brutally and visibly manifest. It is a place that reinforces the social order, that reminds you of the terrible consequences of stepping outside the bounds of the law. You see the noose swaying in the wind from the town square, and you feel a cold knot of fear in your stomach. It is meant to keep you honest, but mostly it is meant to keep you afraid.
The court's cruelty. If you are unfortunate enough to be accused of a crime, you will find yourself in the cold, intimidating world of the Tudor courtroom. This is not a place of blind justice and impartial reason. It is a place of power, of rhetoric, and of a system that is overwhelmingly weighted in favor of the prosecution. For a common person, an appearance in court is a terrifying and often financially ruinous experience, regardless of your guilt or innocence. The court is held in the great hall of a castle or in the town's guild hall. The judge, a stern figure in robes and a wig, sits on a high, imposing bench. He is not a neutral arbiter. He is a representative of the king's authority, and his primary role is to secure a conviction. Below him sit the lawyers, the clerks, and the jury. The jury is not composed of your peers, but of property-owning men, men whose interests are aligned with those of the established order.
You, the accused, stand alone in the dock. You have no right to a defense lawyer. You must speak for yourself, to answer the complex legal arguments and the aggressive questioning of the prosecuting attorney. You are likely illiterate, uneducated in the law, and terrified. You stammer, you contradict yourself. Your fear and confusion are often interpreted as signs of guilt. The evidence presented against you may be flimsy. It might be the testimony of a single, unreliable witness, perhaps someone with a personal grudge against you. It might be a confession that has been extracted from you under torture. The use of the rack, the thumbscrews, and other instruments of pain to secure a confession is a common and accepted part of the legal process, especially in cases of treason or heresy. A confession obtained under duress is considered valid evidence. The trial is a swift and brutal affair. There are no long delays, no complex appeals process. Your fate is often decided in a single day. The jury listens to the evidence, the judge gives his summary, often strongly biased towards a guilty verdict, and they deliver their judgment.
If you are found guilty, the sentencing is immediate. For a minor property crime, you might be sentenced to a public whipping or branding with a hot iron, a permanent mark of your criminality. For a more serious crime, like theft of goods worth more than a shilling, the penalty is death by hanging. The courts of Tudor England are notoriously harsh, a reflection of a society that is deeply fearful of social disorder. But even if you are, by some miracle, found innocent, your ordeal is not over. You are still required to pay a fee to the court for your own trial. You must pay the jailer for your food and lodging while you are awaiting trial. These costs can be ruinous for a poor family. You may have to sell your tools, your livestock, your small plot of land, just to pay the fees associated with being proven innocent. Many an innocent person leaves the courtroom free, but utterly destitute. The court is not a place where you go to seek justice. It is a place you pray you never have to see. It is a cruel and intimidating machine, designed not to find the truth, but to maintain order and to reinforce the power of the state. It is a place where justice is not weighed on a balanced scale, but in the cold, hard currency of coin and power.
The great halls glow. As dusk settles over the land, the focus of life in the great house shifts to the great hall. This cavernous, high-ceilinged room, which served as a courtroom or a reception area during the day, is now transformed into a dining hall, a theater of feasting, and the warm, beating heart of the household's evening. The hall is lit by the flickering, uncertain light of dozens of tallow candles and smoky rushlights, their flames dancing in the perpetual drafts that snake through the room. The primary source of both light and heat, however, is the magnificent, roaring fire in the great hearth. This is a fireplace large enough to roast an entire ox, and its flames leap and roar, casting a warm golden glow on the stone walls and the dark timbered roof high above. The air is thick with the rich, savory smell of the roasting meat that turns slowly on a spit, its fat dripping and hissing into the fire below. The room is a symphony of noise. The trestle tables which have been set up for the meal are crowded with the members of the household. At the head of the room, on a raised dais, sits the high table, where the Lord, his family, and his most honored guests are seated. Below them, in the main body of the hall, sit the lesser gentry, the senior servants, and the men-at-arms, their positions at the table a precise and visible map of the household's hierarchy. The air is thick with the sound of their conversation, their laughter, their shouted requests for more ale. The sound of dogs who roam freely through the hall, barking and fighting over fallen scraps, adds to the general din.
The meal itself is a performance of abundance. Servants move in a steady stream from the kitchens, bearing huge platters of food. There is the roasted meat from the fire, pies filled with game, boiled vegetables, and, for the high table, elaborate sculptural dishes known as subtleties. There is bread, both the fine white manchet for the Lord and the coarser cheat bread for the rest.
There are jugs of strong ale and, for the wealthy, imported wine from France or Spain. You eat with your fingers and a knife. The fork has not yet come into common use. You use a thick slice of stale bread, a trencher, as your plate. You tear at the meat. You sop up the gravy with your bread. It is a noisy, messy, and deeply satisfying affair. The rules of etiquette are important, but they are different from our own. It is considered polite to share a drinking cup with your neighbor, and to toss the gnawed bones onto the rush-covered floor for the dogs. The Great Hall is the stomach of the household, but it is also its soul. It is the place where the community comes together at the end of the day to share food, to share warmth, and to reaffirm the bonds that hold it together. It is a place of warmth, of noise, of abundance, and of a powerful communal energy. As you sit in the warm glow of the fire, with a full belly and a cup of ale in your hand, the cold, harsh realities of the outside world seem, for a few brief, precious hours, to be very far away. Music of the lute. Amidst the noise and the chaos of the great hall, amidst the clatter of plates, the shouting of men, and the barking of dogs, another sound sometimes emerges. A sound of pure, refined beauty that seems to cut through the din. It is the sound of music. In an age without recorded sound, a live musical performance is a rare, precious, and almost magical experience. The musician, or minstrel, is often a traveling professional, a man who makes his living by moving from one great house to another, offering his skills in exchange for a meal, a place to sleep, and a few coins. He is a welcome and honored guest, for he brings with him the gift of entertainment, a relief from the monotony of daily life. He sits on a stool near the high table, in the warm glow of the firelight. His instrument is the lute, the most popular instrument of the Tudor age. It is a beautiful, pear-shaped instrument with a delicate, fretted neck and multiple courses of strings. His fingers, long and nimble, dance across the strings with a practiced, effortless grace.
The music he plays is intricate and beautiful. He might play a pavane, a slow, stately, and slightly melancholic dance tune. He might play a galliard, a more lively, leaping dance that makes the feet of the younger guests tap restlessly under the table. Or he might play a fantasia, a complex improvisatory piece that shows off his technical skill and his musical imagination. But the minstrel is not just an instrumentalist. He is also a singer. His voice is clear and strong, trained to project over the noise of the hall. He sings the popular ballads of the day, long narrative songs that tell stories of heroic knights, of tragic lovers, of great battles, and of mischievous outlaws. He sings of Greensleeves, of the Battle of Otterburn, of the adventures of Robin Hood. As he sings, a hush falls over the hall. The conversations die down, the diners pause, their knives halfway to their mouths. They listen, captivated. The music and the story transport them out of their own time and place. For a few minutes, they are no longer in a smoky, drafty hall in England. They are on a battlefield in France, or in a star-crossed lover's garden, or in the greenwood with Robin Hood and his merry men.
The songs are a powerful form of cultural memory. They are the way that history, myth, and morality are transmitted in a largely illiterate society. The stories in the songs reinforce the values of the culture: courage, loyalty, piety, and the proper roles of men and women. For the lord of the house, the minstrel is also a status symbol. To have a skilled musician in your household is a sign of your wealth, your sophistication, and your patronage of the arts. The quality of your music is a reflection of the quality of your court. When the song is over, the hall erupts in applause and shouts of approval. The spell is broken. The noise and the conversation resume, but the mood has been changed. The music has brought a moment of beauty, of magic, of shared emotional experience into the rough and tumble world of the Great Hall. It is a fleeting and precious gift, a reminder that even in this hard and practical age, there is a deep and abiding hunger for the transporting power of art.
The Privy Chamber's secrets. The Great Hall, with its noise, its feasting, and its public rituals, is the stage upon which the Lord's power is performed. But the real business of power is not conducted here. It is conducted in the small, quiet, and intensely private rooms that lie behind the Great Hall, in the inner sanctum of the household known as the Privy Chamber. This is the nerve center of the Tudor court, a world of whispers, of secrets, and of high-stakes political maneuvering. The Privy Chamber is the Lord's private apartment. It is a suite of rooms, including a bedchamber and a small sitting room that are reserved for the Lord, his family, and his most trusted advisors. It is a world of relative luxury and comfort. The walls are hung with expensive tapestries, which provide both insulation and a display of wealth. The floors are covered with fine carpets imported from the East. The furniture is made of carved oak. The windows have glass panes. The fire in the hearth is kept well fed. But the most important feature of the Privy Chamber is its privacy. It is a space that is guarded, exclusive, and difficult to access. To be granted entry into the Privy Chamber is a sign of immense favor and trust. It is here, away from the prying eyes and ears of the main court, that the real work of politics is done.
In the quiet of the Privy Chamber, the Lord meets with his secretary to read and dictate his correspondence. Letters arrive from the royal court, from other nobles, from his agents across his vast estates. These letters contain sensitive information about political alliances, about military threats, about the price of wool. The Lord's replies, carefully worded and sealed with his personal wax seal, can determine the fate of a treaty, the outcome of a lawsuit, the career of a courtier. It is in the Privy Chamber that alliances are forged and broken. A secret meeting is held with an envoy from a rival noble family. A marriage contract is negotiated, linking two great houses and their fortunes. A plot is hatched to undermine a rival at the royal court. The air is thick with intrigue. Every word is carefully weighed. A single, ill-judged comment, a piece of information shared with the wrong person, can lead to ruin. The favor of the Lord is the currency of this world. Courtiers and petitioners vie for a moment of his private time, a chance to whisper a request or a piece of information in his ear. The gentlemen of the Privy Chamber, the Lord's personal attendants, are powerful figures, for they control access to the Lord himself. They are the gatekeepers, and their goodwill must be cultivated.
This is a world of immense and constant pressure. The stakes are incredibly high. A successful courtier can win land, titles, wealth, and power. A failed courtier can face financial ruin, exile, or even the executioner's axe. The smiles are false. The friendships are strategic. It is a world of paranoia, of surveillance, of a constant gnawing anxiety. The Privy Chamber is the hidden engine of the great house. It is a quiet, carpeted, and candlelit world, but it is more dangerous and more brutal than any battlefield. It is a place where fortunes are made and lives are broken, not with the clash of swords, but with the stroke of a pen and the whisper of a secret. Locking the gates. As the last of the gray evening light fades from the sky, a profound and ancient ritual begins. One that is repeated every night in every castle, walled town, and great house across the land. It is the ritual of the locking up,
the sealing of the community against the dangers of the night. It is a process that transforms the settlement from an open, living community into a closed, guarded fortress. The signal is the ringing of the curfew bell from the local church or the gatehouse tower. The word curfew comes from the French couvre-feu, meaning cover the fire. It is a signal to the inhabitants to damp down their hearth fires for the night to prevent an accidental blaze, but it is also the signal for the nightly lockdown to begin. The main focus of this ritual is the Great Gate. The gate of a town or a castle is its most vulnerable point, and securing it is a matter of the utmost importance. The process is a slow and noisy one. The massive, iron-studded oak doors are swung shut, their great hinges groaning in protest. Then the heavy wooden drawbridge, if there is one, is raised, its chains rattling and clanking as the guards turn the winding mechanism.
But the real security comes from the bars and the portcullis. A series of thick, heavy, iron-bound wooden bars are dropped into place across the inside of the doors, their ends thudding into deep stone sockets. Then the portcullis, a heavy iron or wooden grill, is lowered from its recess above the gateway, its sharp, pointed ends sinking into the stone floor. The sound of the portcullis crashing down is the sound of absolute finality. The fortress is sealed. Once the main gates are locked, the watch begins its duty. The captain of the guard takes the keys to the gates, a large, heavy bunch of iron, and delivers them to the lord of the castle or the mayor of the town. This is a ceremonial handover, a symbol that the security of the community is now in the hands of its leader. The keys will be kept in his chamber until they are needed to open the gates at sunrise. The guards, or watchmen, take up their positions. They are armed with spears or halberds, and they carry lanterns, their flickering yellow light casting long, moving shadows on the stone walls. They begin their slow, repetitive patrols along the battlements and through the silent, empty streets. Their job is to be the eyes and ears of the sleeping town, to listen for any sign of trouble, to be the first line of defense against any threat, whether from inside or out. For the inhabitants, huddled in their homes, the sounds of the locking up are a source of deep, primal reassurance. The groan of the gates, the rattle of the chains, the thud of the bars, the crash of the portcullis, these are the sounds of safety. They are the sounds of a community drawing its walls around itself, creating a small, protected island of order in the vast, dark, and dangerous ocean of the night. The world outside is now the domain of the bandit, the wolf, and the restless spirit. You are inside, you are locked in, and you are, for now, safe.
Candles burning low. The night has been sealed out, but the darkness within the walls remains a powerful and ever-present foe. The battle against this internal darkness is fought with the small, fragile, and precious flames of candles. Light in the Tudor home is not a utility to be taken for granted. It is a carefully managed and often expensive resource. In the great hall, the evening began with a blaze of light. Dozens of candles held in iron chandeliers and wall sconces would have been lit for the evening meal. But as the meal ends and the household begins to wind down, these are extinguished one by one to conserve the precious fuel. The great hall, once a bright, warm space, slowly sinks back into a cavern of shadows and gloom. The most common and cheapest form of light is the tallow candle. It is made from rendered animal fat, usually from sheep or cattle. It is made in the household, a smelly and unpleasant chore. The fat is melted down, and a wick made of twisted reed or cotton is dipped repeatedly into the hot liquid tallow, each dipping adding a new layer until a candle of the desired thickness is formed.
The tallow candle is a deeply imperfect source of light.
It burns with a smoky, yellow, and often sputtering flame. It gives off a distinct, greasy, and unpleasant smell, the smell of burning animal fat. The tallow itself is soft, especially in warmer weather, and the candle can bend and droop. As it burns, it drips a messy, greasy residue. But it is cheap, and it is available. The aristocrat of the candle world is the beeswax candle. Made from the wax produced by bees, it is a luxury item, many times more expensive than tallow. It is reserved for the wealthiest households, for the church altar, and for the private chambers of the lord and lady. The beeswax candle burns with a clear, steady, and bright flame. It produces very little smoke, and it gives off a faint, sweet, and pleasant scent of honey. The quality of the light in a room is a direct and visible indicator of the wealth and status of its occupant.
As the evening progresses, you watch the candle in your own chamber burn down. It is a slow, mesmerizing, and slightly melancholy process. The flame consumes the wax, the pool of molten liquid at its base growing larger. The candle itself shrinks, a slow, steady measurement of the passing of the night. You use the light to perform a final task, to say your prayers from a prayer book, to do a piece of mending. But you are always aware of the candle's diminishing life. When it has burned down to a small, sputtering stub, you know that the time for light is over. You use a snuffer, a small metal cone on a handle, to extinguish the flame. To simply blow it out would be to fill the room with a final acrid puff of smoke, and to risk sending a spark onto the flammable straw bedding. The snuffer extinguishes the flame cleanly and safely. The room is plunged into an absolute, profound darkness. The shadows which had been lurking in the corners now rush in to reclaim the entire space. The visual world is gone, replaced by a world of sound, of touch, of the imagination. The life of the candle is over, and you are left alone in the dark to wait for the morning.
The chill returns. The great fire in the hall has been banked for the night, its roaring flames reduced to a bed of sullen, glowing embers covered with a layer of ash. The smaller fires in the private chambers have been allowed to die out completely. With the death of the fires, the castle's ancient and implacable enemy, the cold, begins its nightly reconquest. The warmth of the evening was only a temporary victory, a brief, localized truce in an eternal war. It was a warmth that was skin-deep. The immense, solid mass of the castle's stone walls has remained cold throughout the day, and now, with the fires gone, it begins to radiate this deep, penetrating chill back into the rooms. You lie in your bed, and you can feel it. It is not like the sharp, clean cold of the outside air. It is a heavy, damp, and insidious chill that seems to emanate from the very structure of the building around you. It seeps up from the stone floor. It radiates from the walls. It seems to descend from the high, dark ceilings. It is the cold of the grave, the cold of the cave.
You pull the heavy wool and linen covers higher around your shoulders, creating a small personal cocoon. You curl your body into a tight ball, trying to conserve every scrap of your own body heat. But the cold is relentless. It finds its way through the layers of your bedding. It makes the sheets feel clammy and damp against your skin. The air you breathe is cold enough to make your throat ache. The only other source of warmth in the bed is another body. If you are married, you huddle close to your spouse, sharing a small pocket of warmth. In the crowded servants' quarters, people sleep packed together on the floor, their collective body heat a meager but essential defense against the night's chill. To sleep alone in a Tudor castle is to have a truly cold and comfortless night.
As the castle cools, you begin to hear the sounds of its other inhabitants. The house is settling,
its ancient timbers creaking and groaning as they contract in the cold. And then you hear the more distinct, more unsettling sounds, the frantic, almost silent scratching of the mice in the rafters and within the walls, the bolder, more confident scuttling of a rat across the floorboards. You lie perfectly still, listening, your ears straining in the darkness. Every small sound is magnified. Every rustle of the straw in your mattress could be a sign of some small, furry, and unwelcome visitor. The cold seems to amplify these sounds, to make the darkness feel more alive, more threatening. You are encased in a great, cold stone box, a box that you share with the wind, the damp, the rats, and the ever-present bone-deep chill. You close your eyes, you pull the covers over your head, and you wait for the blessed oblivion of sleep, your only true escape from the cold and the dark.
Plague at the door. The great pestilence of the 14th century is a fading but not forgotten memory. The Black Death has receded, but the plague itself has not gone away. It has become an endemic, reoccurring feature of Tudor life, a slumbering beast that awakens every decade or so to ravage a new generation. The fear of the plague is a constant, low-level hum of anxiety beneath the surface of daily life, a fear that can be ignited into full-blown panic by a sudden spike in the weekly death toll or a single ominous sight. You are walking through the narrow streets of London on a hot summer afternoon. The air is thick with the usual smells of the city. Then you hear it, the slow, rhythmic, and unmistakable creak of wooden wheels accompanied by the monotonous, mournful cry of a bell. All other sounds in the street seem to die down. People stop their conversations. They press themselves back against the walls of the houses. A cart appears at the end of the lane. It is a simple, open-backed cart pulled by a single weary-looking horse. The man leading it, the bearer, is a grim, hollow-eyed figure. In the back of the cart is a pile of misshapen lumps covered by a dirty canvas sheet. But you know what lies beneath the sheet, and you can smell it. It is a faint, sweetish, and deeply horrifying smell of sickness and decay, a smell that cuts through all the other stenches of the city. This is the death cart, making its rounds to collect the victims of the latest outbreak.
A door opens a few houses down from you. Two men, their faces covered with cloths, emerge, carrying a body wrapped in a sheet. They place it carefully in the cart, adding it to the anonymous pile. The door closes. A red cross has been painted on it, a stark warning to all who pass by. This house is infected. This house is sealed. The sight of the cart, the sound of the bell, the smell of the sickness, it is a direct and terrifying assault on the senses. It is a visceral reminder that the pestilence is not an abstract threat. It is here, now, in your own neighborhood, on your own street. The fear is immediate and palpable. You pull your own cloak tighter. You take out the small pomander you carry, a metal ball filled with aromatic herbs, and hold it to your nose, a futile gesture against a danger you do not understand. You begin to walk faster, your only thought to get away, to get back to the relative safety of your own home.
But you know that your home is not safe. The plague is a mysterious and capricious killer. It seems to travel on the air, on the bad smells, the miasmas. You start to think back over your day. Who did you speak to at the market? Did you brush up against a stranger in the crowd? The city, which a moment ago felt like a bustling community, now feels like a network of invisible traps. That night, you lie in bed and you cannot sleep. Every small ache in your body, every slight feeling of warmth becomes a source of terror. Is it a fever? Is this how it begins? You listen to the breathing of your family, searching for any sign of sickness. The memory of the death cart, with its silent, shrouded cargo, is burned into your mind. The plague is at the door, and in the dark, fearful, and uncertain world of Tudor England, you can do nothing but pray that it will pass you by.
Hunger's slow grip. The greatest and most persistent fear in your life is not the plague, nor the law, nor the wrath of your Lord. It is a quieter, slower, and more intimate fear. It is the fear of hunger. Your world is an agrarian one, utterly dependent on the bounty of the earth. And the earth is a fickle and unpredictable provider. Your survival is balanced on the knife edge of a single annual event, the harvest. A good harvest is a year of security. The barns are full of grain, the storerooms are stocked with salted meat and preserved vegetables. The bread is plentiful, the ale is strong. There is enough to eat, enough to pay your rent and your tithe, and perhaps a small surplus to sell at the market. A good harvest is a year of breathing easily. But a bad harvest is a catastrophe. It can be caused by a number of things. A long, cold, wet spring can cause the seeds to rot in the ground. A summer drought can wither the crops in the field. A series of violent hailstorms can flatten the stalks of wheat. A blight, a fungus, a swarm of insects. The threats are numerous, and they are constant.
When the harvest fails, a slow, creeping dread settles over the community. The grain that is brought in is not enough. The painful process of rationing begins immediately. The portions of bread become smaller. The ale becomes thinner. The pottage, the daily stew, is made with more water and fewer vegetables. As autumn turns to winter, the hunger begins to bite. It is not the dramatic starvation of a famine, not yet. It is a constant, gnawing, low-level hunger that saps your strength and your spirit. You wake up hungry, you go to bed hungry. You dream of food. Your children, their faces thin and pale, complain of their empty bellies, a sound that is a physical pain in your own heart. The community begins to fray at the edges. The customary sharing and neighborliness of a prosperous year is replaced by a guarded, fearful selfishness. You watch your own small store of food with a jealous eye. Thefts from barns and larders become more common. The social bonds that hold the village together are weakened by the shared competitive struggle for scarce resources.
As winter deepens, the situation becomes more desperate. You are forced to eat things that you would normally feed to the pigs. The husks of the grain, acorns, even tree bark, ground up and mixed with your dwindling supply of flour to make a bitter, unsatisfying bread. The livestock, also suffering from a lack of fodder, grow thin and weak. You may be forced to slaughter your precious milk cow or your plow ox, a desperate act that mortgages your future for the sake of your immediate survival. The physical effects of this prolonged malnutrition are severe. Your body weakens. You become more susceptible to the common diseases of the winter, the coughs, the fevers, the fluxes. The death rate, particularly among the very young and the very old, begins to rise. Hunger is a slow, quiet, and relentless enemy. It does not strike with the sudden dramatic violence of the plague. It is a slow tightening of a noose, a gradual draining away of life and hope. It is the fundamental, underlying anxiety of your existence, the knowledge that you are always just one bad harvest away from disaster.
The king's levy. The peace of your village is a fragile and temporary thing.
Beyond the borders of your own small world, the great powers of Europe are in a constant state of conflict. The Tudor monarchs are ambitious, and their ambitions require armies. They are constantly at war or preparing for war with France, with Spain, with Scotland, and when the king needs soldiers, he does not rely on a professional volunteer army, he relies on the levy. The king's levy is a royal command that requires each county and each town to provide a certain number of able-bodied men for military service. The arrival of the king's commissioners in your village with their official parchments and their armed escort is a cause for deep and immediate dread. It means that some of you will be taken. The selection process is not a fair one. The sons of the wealthy can often buy their way out of service, paying a fee for a substitute to go in their place. The burden falls most heavily on the poor, on the landless laborers, on the young men with the fewest connections and the least to lose. Or so it is thought.
Your son, a strong young man of 19, is chosen. He has no say in the matter. It is not a request, it is a command. To refuse is to be branded a traitor, a crime punishable by death. There is a heartbreaking, hasty farewell. His mother weeps, pressing a small loaf of bread and a lucky charm into his hand. You give him your own sturdy cloak, your heart a cold, heavy stone in your chest. And then he is gone, marched away with the other conscripts from the village, on the road to a distant port, and a war in a foreign land that you cannot even find on a map. The departure of the men leaves a great, gaping hole in the life of the village. The workforce is depleted. The fields are harder to till. The harvest is more difficult to bring in. The women are left to manage the farms and the households alone, a double burden of labor and anxiety. And the anxiety is immense. News from the war is scarce and unreliable. A traveling merchant or a wandering pilgrim might bring a vague report of a great battle, of a siege, of a sickness that is sweeping through the army camps. You do not know if your son is alive or dead. You do not know if he is wounded or captured or starving in a muddy trench in Flanders.
The life of a common soldier is brutal and often short. The pay is poor and often late. The food is rotten. The conditions in the camps are filthy, and disease is a greater killer than the enemy. The battles themselves are terrifying, chaotic, and bloody affairs of pikes, swords, and the new frightening power of cannons and muskets. Months and then years go by. Some of the men return. They are changed. They are harder, colder. Some are missing limbs. Others are broken by the trauma of what they have seen. They bring with them stories of unimaginable violence and hardship. But many do not return at all. They vanish into the great hungry machine of the king's war, their fate unknown. You wait, and you hope, and you pray. But as the years pass, the hope begins to fade, replaced by a dull, aching grief. The king's levy is a wound that is inflicted upon the community, a wound that may never truly heal. It is a stark reminder that your life and the lives of your children are not your own. You belong to the king, and when he calls, you must answer.
The first bell rings. The night has been a long, cold, and restless one, a journey through a sea of shallow, dream-troubled sleep. The darkness in your chamber has been absolute, the silence broken only by the creak of a floorboard and the distant, lonely cry of an owl. But now, in the deepest, blackest hour just before the dawn, a new sound enters the world. It is the sound of the church bell. It is a single, clear, and powerful toll, an iron tongue striking against an iron lip. The sound cuts through the stillness, rolls across the sleeping fields, and penetrates the thick stone walls of your house. It is the first bell, the call to matins, the first of the canonical hours. It is the sound that signals the end of the night's dominion and the beginning of the new day. You lie in your bed and listen. You do not need the bell to tell you that it is time to rise. The ingrained internal clock of a lifetime of labor has already begun to stir you, but the sound of the bell is a confirmation, a command, an official announcement that the cycle is beginning once more.
The bell is the voice of God, but it is also the voice of your community, the voice of order itself. It is a sound that connects you to every other person in your town or village. You know that at this very moment, your neighbors are also hearing this sound, are also stirring in their cold beds, are also preparing to face the day. The bell is a shared experience, a thread of sound that weaves you all together. For the priests and the monks, the bell is a literal call to prayer. They are rising now, making their way through the cold, dark cloisters to the chapel to begin their long daily round of worship. Their chanted prayers, they believe, are what hold the world together, what keep the forces of darkness at bay. For you, a layperson, the bell is a more practical signal. It is the starting gun for the race of the day. It means that the fire must be lit, that the animals must be fed, that the morning meal must be prepared. It is the sound that sets the machinery of your life back into motion.
You swing your legs out of bed, the cold of the floor a familiar shock. As you move about your darkened room, lighting a candle, pulling on your clothes, the bell continues to toll its slow, steady, measured rhythm. It is a sound that is at once somber and hopeful. It is somber because it signals the end of the brief, forgetful peace of the night and the return to the endless toil of the day. But it is hopeful because it is a sound of continuity, of resilience. It is a sound that has rung out every morning for generations, through plague and through famine, through war and through peace. The bell tolls for the new day, a day that will be much like the last, filled with the same hardships, the same anxieties, the same labor. But it is a new day nonetheless. The night is over. You have survived it. And the sound of the bell ringing out in the cold pre-dawn darkness is the sound of the world beginning again.
Smoke over the fields. As you step out of your dwelling into the chill, gray air of the early morning, the world is still quiet and half asleep. But as you look out across the landscape, you see the first visible signs of the community stirring to life. From the thatched roofs of the cottages in the village, and from the more distant farmsteads scattered across the fields, thin, pale columns of smoke are beginning to rise into the still morning sky. Each plume of smoke is a signal, a quiet announcement. It says that a family is awake. It says that a hearth has been rekindled. It says that the daily battle against the cold has been won, and that the preparation for the morning meal has begun. The smoke is the collective breath of the waking world, a visual chorus that replaces the sound of the morning bell. You watch the smoke for a moment. It rises slowly at first, a thick white smoke from the damp kindling, and then it becomes thinner and grayer as the fire takes hold. The direction of the smoke tells you the direction of the wind, a small but vital piece of information for a day to be spent working outdoors.
The sight is a comforting one. It is a visual confirmation that you are not alone. The world is full of other people, other families, who are at this very moment engaged in the same fundamental rituals of survival as you are. The smoke connects the scattered, isolated households, weaving them together into a single, visible community. A house without a plume of smoke is a cause for concern. It might mean sickness. It might mean that the family has run out of firewood. It might even mean death. The smell of the wood smoke begins to drift on the morning air. It is a sharp,
clean, and slightly acrid smell, the signature scent of the rural morning. It mingles with the other smells of the dawn, the smell of the damp earth, of the wet grass, of the animals stirring in their pens. It is a smell that speaks of home, of warmth, of food, of the beginning of a new day. As the sun begins to rise, a pale white disk behind the morning mist, the smoke is infused with its light. The columns are transformed from gray to a soft, luminous gold. The sight has a quiet, almost spiritual beauty. It is the beauty of a world that is simple, orderly, and deeply connected to the basic elements of existence: fire, earth, air, and water.
The smoke is a symbol of the immense and often invisible labor that underpins your world. Every one of those plumes represents a person who has risen in the cold and the dark, who has painstakingly coaxed a fire back to life, who is now preparing the food that will give their family the strength to face the day's work. The smoke is the exhalation of a landscape of labor. You turn from the sight and begin your own day's work, your own breath now mingling with the smoke from your own chimney. You are one of those columns of smoke. You are part of the great, quiet, and beautiful process of the world waking up.
The market opens once more. The sun has risen higher in the sky, burning off the last of the morning mist. The town, which was silent and empty at dawn, is now beginning to thrum with the familiar energy of the new day. And the source of that energy, the beating heart of the town's economic life, is the market. The first sounds are the sounds of preparation. You hear the deep rumbling groan of heavy wooden cartwheels rolling over the uneven cobblestones of the market square. The farmers and the merchants are arriving, bringing their goods in from the countryside and from the town's own workshops. There is the sound of shouting, of men giving orders to their horses and their apprentices. There is the clatter of wooden barrels being rolled into place, the thud of heavy sacks being unloaded. The stalls are set up, simple wooden tables and awnings that transform the empty square into a bustling temporary city of commerce. The goods are laid out for display. The baker arranges his loaves of bread, the warm, yeasty smell a powerful magnet for the first customers. The fishmonger lays out his catch on a bed of wet straw, the silver scales of the fish gleaming in the morning light. The farmer's wife carefully stacks her cheeses and her baskets of eggs. The air, which at dawn smelled only of wood smoke and damp earth, is now filling with a rich and complex symphony of smells. The aroma of fresh bread and roasting pies from the food stalls, the salty, briny smell of the fish, the sharp, earthy smell of vegetables and herbs, the musky animal smell of the livestock pens where sheep and pigs are for sale, and, of course, the ever-present smell of the horses and the oxen that have brought the goods to market. The first customers arrive, their baskets on their arms. They are the household servants, the cooks, and the housewives sent to buy the provisions for the day. Their voices are added to the growing din, a murmur of inquiry, of gossip, of the timeless, universal art of haggling. How much for the onions? Is the fish fresh? I'll give you 2 pence for the chicken, and not a penny more. The market is more than just a place to buy and sell. It is the town's central information exchange. It is where news is shared, where rumors are born, where public notices are read. It is where you learn about the latest turn in the king's war with France, about the new tax that is to be levied, about the wedding of the local lord's daughter. The opening of the market is a daily reaffirmation of the town's existence. It is a sign that the intricate web of production, transportation, and consumption that keeps the community alive is still functioning. It is a testament to the fact that, despite the hardships, the hunger, and the fear, the world of commerce goes on. The barrels roll, the prices are called, the coins are exchanged. The day has begun, and the noisy, smelly, and vibrant business of survival is once more in full swing.
Life continues in the kingdom. You stand for a moment at the edge of the bustling market square, and you take it all in. The noise, the smells, the jostling crowd. The farmer arguing with the merchant, the priest crossing the square on his way to the church, the Lord's steward watching over the proceedings with a proprietary air. You realize that what you are witnessing is not just a market, it is a miniature portrait of your entire world. A world held in a delicate and often brutal balance. You understand that your life is not your own. It is a single, small thread in a vast and complex tapestry. Your life is governed by a rhythm that you did not create and cannot change. It is the rhythm of the seasons, the endless cycle of planting and harvesting, of labor and brief rest. It is the rhythm of the church bell, the call to prayer that structures your day and your soul. It is the rhythm of the kingdom, the demands of the king and the Lord, whose wars and whose wealth are built upon the sweat of your labor.
You realize that there is no escaping this rhythm. You can work hard, you can be pious, you can be cautious, but you cannot escape the fundamental realities of your existence. You cannot escape the gnawing hunger of a thin harvest, the sudden terror of the plague, the cold hand of the tax collector. You cannot escape the rigid hierarchy that places you at the bottom, your life and your labor belonging to the men who own the land and wield the swords. And yet, you endure. This is the great unspoken truth of your life. You are not a hero from a romance, a king from a history book. You are a survivor. You have survived the cold of the winter, the fevers of the summer, the back-breaking labor of the fields. You have survived the hunger, the injustice, the fear.
You endure because of the small things, the warmth of the fire on a cold night, the taste of the first ale from a new barrel, the sound of your child's laughter, the brief, golden beauty of the sun on a ripe field of barley. These are the moments of grace that make the hardship bearable. You endure because of the community. You are not alone in your struggle. Your neighbor shares your fears. Your priest shares your faith. Your family shares your small, smoky hut. You are bound together by a web of shared experience, of mutual obligation, of a common, stubborn refusal to surrender. And so, you turn from the market square and you walk back into the rhythm of your day. You will work, you will eat, you will sleep. You will love your family, you will fear your God, and you will obey your king. You will live out your life in the small, circumscribed world that has been allotted to you. You are a peasant in Tudor England. Your life is hard, it is unjust, it is often short. But it is your life. And as the sun climbs higher in the sky, you continue to live it with a quiet, unyielding, and almost unconscious strength. The kingdom continues, and you, in your small, essential way, are the foundation upon which it is built.